Hey, this is Gerd Handel, and welcome to the Inner Light Project. This show is for anyone who's wanting to lead a happier, healthier, and enlightened life. Create more self-love, inject more joy and abundance into their daily life. Join me for inspiring interviews and spiritual topics so you can shine your inner light. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Inner Light Project. Today I have a beautiful guest for me who's helping people to say yes to their inner vision. Now this person helps her clients to overcome roadblocks, move around the detours and activate a life on their own terms. Brie, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the show and thank you for joining this space here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, bless you. Well, Brie, your life story really interests me. Can you tell the listeners what your life was like before you actually became a life coach?
Yeah, pretty much before I started down this path, my life had been really defined by what I didn't want. I had been pretty much on the run for my entire life, leaving whatever I didn't want. I didn't like where I grew up, so I ran away to college a year early, but I didn't even really like where I went to college, so I ran away from there to go to Italy for 2 years. And while Italy was great, again, it was like I was running from something, so it wasn't ever able to fully enjoy it. And then I had to leave Italy, obviously visa reasons, and ended up in a small town in Washington and literally only landed there because I got a job there. And then I stayed there even though I didn't really like it. And my entire life was kind of marked by what I didn't want. And I finally, it was like 5 years ago that I moved to Los Angeles. And I feel like it was one of my first few conscious decisions to choose what I wanted versus what I didn't want. And from there, then, I decided to shut down my fashion brand that I'd been running for 7 years because I didn't want that anymore either. And it just didn't feel good and it didn't feel aligned. And very closely after making that space, I realized that people had been asking me to help them bring their visions to life, like help coach them through that process of creation for years. And I'd constantly been like, no, I don't do that. That's not my thing. I'm fine. And so once I made the space from closing down my fashion brand, I was like, oh, the universe is clearly asking me to do this thing. Like it keeps putting all these people in my path, showing me that this opportunity is available to me. So what would happen if I said yes to it? And so I now kind of build my life along the lines of like following the breadcrumbs. So you're like literally the second person I'm talking to this about. The last several weeks, like close to a month, I think the universe has been really pointing me in the direction of why do you only coach women? And finally last night, a girlfriend of mine said it to me. She's like, have you ever thought about coaching men? And I was like, you are like the 10th person or thing or experience or conversation I've had that's really been pointing me in this direction. And so, I've had multiple men reach out over the last few weeks, and I think I'm going to say yes to opening up that area as well, because I'm clearly being asked for it. And I follow what's put in front of me now and decide whether or not it's something I want to say yes to.
It's definitely a sign you've got to do it. That is 100%. It's a sign. I totally relate with what you're saying. Because a few years ago back, I was always I kind of coached men and women, but something said to me I needed to coach women, and I kept ignoring it. And like yourself, I kept getting the messages, or people kept messaging me, and it was like, right, okay, I need to trust in this process. And it was the best thing I ever did. It was, sometimes we're called out to do things at a different time in our life. And I feel like at the moment that is what the universe wants you to do.
Yeah, it's pretty clear, especially last night. This girlfriend of mine is like, just so not like this, these are not conversations we ever have, right? Like and it came so out of the blue that I was just like, okay, that's the final straw. Got it.
Oh, I love that. It's so interesting about your journey, coming from a fashion world to being a coach. Do you reckon that a lot of women in particular are scared of making that change, and that's why we hold on to a certain job or a certain career for such a long time.
Absolutely. I just spoke about this. I just had a 3-day intensive in my home, and one of the women was asking about it because she's getting ready to leave something to step into something new. And I was talking to her about how she's going to need to plan for this grieving process, because what happens is our ego attaches so tightly onto these identities that we create for ourselves. And it happened to me totally. It was like 9 months of me kind of like picking up the pieces of my broken ego after I decided not to be a fashion designer anymore, because I had attached so much to that I had this like total death moment where I was like, but if I'm not a fashion designer, what am I? And I had to really take the space and the time to sift through that. Who am I in the world? What's my value contribution if I'm not a fashion designer? Because truthfully, I was a fashion designer. My grandmother had taught me sewing when I was little. Like I just got back into it accidentally. But I got really attached to being a fashion designer and what that meant and what that looked like and how I was perceived by the world and what people thought of me because of it. And, dressing big names like Toni Braxton and what that meant about who I was in the world, because, all these things, all this, and it's all bullshit, right? Like it's all nonsense, but I was so steeped in it that when I took that away, I was like, I have nothing. I am no one. I do I even have a reason for living anymore? Like, I mean, I had to go through some really deep shit to come out on the other side in order to learn the truth about who I was without all that ego identity stuff wrapped up in it.
It's so true what you're saying, that we become so attached to the story that we've created and we've molded about ourselves. And I totally relate with you. Back in 2012, I left the journalism world. I always wanted to be a health journalist. That's what I thought I was always going to go down. And when I left that journey and just said enough was enough, it was so hard. And I couldn't give it up for a while, and I kept carrying on, like writing articles for certain companies, thinking, no, I've got to keep doing it. But the universe kept pushing me back, saying, no, you've always been a coach. Go and do it.
Yeah.
But like yourself, I'd always been coaching people. I didn't even realise that I was doing it. I was doing it from such a young age.
Me too.
I used to work in a pharmacy as well, so I was always helping people. But and my mum was a nurse, so it was always there. And it's amazing how we always have these like qualities that we're born with and we grow up with, but we sometimes ignore them. Like yourself, you were always born to be a coach, but somewhere something shifted your mindset and said, go and be a fashion person.
Yeah. And to be fair, of course, and we spoke about before we started Journeys a little bit, like I don't believe that I would be as successful as I am as a coach without having been a fashion designer.
That's true.
And so I think that I needed that space. I talk about my fashion business as my like entrepreneurial training wheels, because I had so much to learn about being a business owner and running a business and money management and like all these things that no one teaches you about being an entrepreneur. I had to learn all those lessons with a business that kind of didn't matter, right? Like it's gone now, so it doesn't really have any significance anymore, in order to then step into the business that's going to be my legacy. Like this business, the book I just wrote, the programs I'm developing, the people I'm touching, that's my legacy. That's what people are going to be talking about in 100 years when I'm physically no longer on the planet. So I needed to learn the lessons that I needed to learn in my fashion business in order to be able to step into the greatness that I'm building with my coaching business.
Absolutely. And I guess you wouldn't be the person you are today if it wasn't for that business and what you learned and the skills. I 100% relate with what you're saying, because I feel the same. Like, even though I was down the journalism route and I used to feel really unhappy watching the news because it was making me sad. I was in that world for so many years. And the moment I stepped away from it, I got to really understand myself. And I am really grateful for the journey that I had, but it does shape you into who you are, and it does help you along your journey to be, I guess, the greatest version of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Maddy, you're now a life coach and you're helping people. So how do you help them to tap into their inner vision?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is honestly, it's more of like a dusting off process because I believe that we all have it within us, like we're born with it. We come onto this planet being programmed with what we're here to do, right? And what happens over the years is that other people's expectations get layered upon that. And, the understandings of how society works gets layered upon that. And, our shoulds, like our mental, well, but doing this career would make more money. Like all that stuff gets layered on top of it. And so I see it more of like a dusting off or like an untangling process where we start looking at, okay, so-and-so placed this expectation on me when I was 5 that I was going to be a lawyer, right? Like, is that mine? Okay, so it's not mine. So now I get to remove that and create space and continually shed all of this stuff in order to have the capacity to allow my vision to fully reveal itself to me. I work a lot more with the idea that your future is already happened. It's already written. It's already there. You just need to be in a space of being able to receive that. And so a lot of the work I do with my women, soon to be men, is connecting with their future selves and really learning who that person is. And it's a simple becoming process. You don't then have to, it's more of an allowing process than a pushing process or a forcing or creating process.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I totally see where you're coming from. It's so important to kind of take yourself away from the story that you've created for so many years and allow yourself to come into the light that you were supposed to be in this world.
Yeah.
It's almost like removing that mask and being yourself.
Yeah, and there's so many masks that we wear and so many masks that, other people hand to us and they're like, here, this would look really good on you. Take it. And we take it and we're like, oh, well, so-and-so thinks I should be wearing this mask, so I'm going to wear it. And we never stop to, I had a client, I think it was 2 years ago, who was 45 years old and she had never answered the question, what do I need?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it's really giving yourself permission to find, like you said, that inner light, find what it is that you're here to do and say yes to it. Yeah.
Do you reckon that with the older generation, because of like they had to fight for a lot, if you look back 100 years this year, isn't it, that women had to fight for their rights. So do you reckon that a lot of us, like as the generations keep like, how can I explain? With the older generation, we're having to clear like not the clutter, but like the injustice and all the things that they went through to really shine and be who we're supposed to be, and show and also mirror that to show them as well.
Absolutely, it's interesting that the more work that I find myself doing, I've watched the other women around me, like especially my mom, is totally different woman in the world because, yes, I'm doing the work for me and my familial patterns, right? But it impacts all of us. And we do now have an opportunity to create something different for the generations to come. And with the shift in time periods and things that are cosmically going on right now is a really beautiful time for us, those of us that are light workers that are already on the planet, to step up and take responsibility for making that change in the world, because we are not only impacting ourselves, we're impacting the women that have come before us and the women that are to come after us as well.
Beautiful. Just because, like with my mum, for example, I love my mum, and my mum is such a giver. She used to be a nurse and she always put everybody ahead of her. And just by me kind of standing up in my own truth and, shining my own light, it's kind of allowed her to realize that it's okay to self-love yourself. It's okay to say no.
Yeah.
Would you say that was kind of like a similar experience with yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My mom called me, I think it was last summer. She started doing yoga last summer for the first time ever.
Wow.
And I don't think she started meditating yet, but I'm working on that one. And then she messaged me a few weeks ago and was like, my stepdad just got a yoga mat and he's going to now start doing yoga with her.
Wow.
And it's kind of cool to see that and she even took one of my manifesting courses. And recently, like, they sold one of the buildings that they owned that they didn't want anymore. And she's she's doing stuff for her now and creating her life. She runs 3 Airbnb listings in my hometown and she freaking loves it. It's the best. And she's always had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I don't know how much she ever actually liked the other businesses she was running. And I think for the first time in her life, she's really getting the chance to do what she wants to do and be compelled by that.
Wow. Sounds like she's living in her truth.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say fully what her experience is, but it's cool to see her for the first time. Like, no, she a few years ago got into ancestry and researched our entire familial line all the way back to the Mayflower with Columbus. And like seeing her find these things that excite her instead of, when I grew up, she was a single mom and she had to work 3 jobs in order to put food on the table. And I watched her, have to work so hard just to make ends meet. And what I love now is being able to now see her thriving and in this place where she's doing what she wants to do every day. She goes to yoga, she gets massages, she runs her Airbnbs, she gets to, cook and she gets to support me and my sister, which she loves. My sister just got her wisdom teeth out and my mom got to go spend 4 days with her while she was recovering. And, it's cool to see that shift between the shoulding and the have-tos to the get to.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Wow. And Maddie, I wanted to ask you an interesting question. So a few weeks ago, we had the beautiful ladies, Heather and Timmy from Energy Muse, and we were talking about crystals and saging. And I kind of noticed, like with yourself, you're kind of into saging as well. So could you tell us about your journey with sage and how it helps you to kind of stand up in your own truth?
Yeah, I started with sage. I mean, it was probably around the time that I started with yoga and meditation, and I don't remember necessarily how it started, but other people were using it around me. Like I would go to a meditation class and they would sage, or I would go to, have a Reiki session. She would sage me beforehand. And I just kind of always it always felt really good. It felt safe and it felt kind of homey to me. And so when I bought my house in 2009, I got a bundle of sage and, cleaned all the energy of the house and, periodically would sage a little bit here and there. And little by little, it's just started becoming part of my daily ritual. And kind of like I talked about earlier, we pick up a lot of energy, right? We pick up a lot of other people's energy. We pick up a lot of just energy that's floating around. And for me, saging myself in the morning is just kind of like a fresh start to the day. And I've really been into this idea of having rituals lately. And so it's just kind of become part of my daily practice, my daily ritual that I do. And it feels good to me to clean my vessel, essentially, because I sage my body every day is basically what I do. I don't sage my home every day, but I sage my body, and it just feels good to have a clean spirit, a clean aura, clean energetic space to start my day from.
It's almost like a reset button for the day.
Yeah. And
it's interesting you were saying about energies. It's so true. A lot of us don't realize like how the energies around us, like even like our old working places, like how the energy would have affected us around there. When I used to work in the pharmacy, I was about 18 years old, and I used to listen to a lot of people's problems, and I've always had this energy, my dear, where people love to tell me everything. I could just go to an event and I will know someone's life story in like 10 minutes. And that used to happen to me a lot in the pharmacy. And I remember used to going home really tired and drained and thinking, why do I feel so tired? I never used to feel like that. And it was because I was picking up everybody else's energy. And it turns out I was anemic for about 2.5 years, but really it wasn't anemia. It was more to do with the energy that I was allowing to come into my field.
Yeah.
And it's
we're not taught about how to have like clean energetic boundaries between people. And so a lot of like energetic courting happens, or other people will try to take their energy and literally like dump it on top of you, or they'll try to pull at your energy, or, you know, and so I found it's really important. I do cord cutting ceremonies all the time. I give people back their energy all the time. I call back in my own energy all the time. And I'm just really clear about, you know, what's mine, what's other people's, what's a healthy energetic exchange and relationship, and what becomes very suddenly, you know, unhealthy or codependent or any of those things. And so that's just kind of another practice that I'm really conscious of. And then the sage kind of helps supplement that. And it helps if there's any energetic, like residual energy lingering, it just kind of takes it away.
Yeah. I find that with selenite as well, that's like my to-go thing. And like, if I ever feel like I've saged myself, and then after, if I feel so a bit tired, I'll just get the selenite wand out and I feel like a fairy.
Yeah. I have a round one that I like. When I had that weekend intensive in my home.
Love it.
All 3 days I just held on to it because I was channeling so much energy. And I needed to have my energy be clean and clear. Like I couldn't be picking up anyone else's energies or anything like that. And I do a lot with selenite. So I have one, like I said, that I hold on to. And even I just recorded my audiobook and I was holding my selenite in my hand the whole time. Okay. And then I have 2 pieces, one on either side of my front door. So any of the energy that comes into my home, I have black tourmaline, one on each side, and then selenite, one on each side. And so the black tourmaline, of course, pulls in any negative energy, and then the selenite cleanses it. Yeah.
For the listeners out there, it's so important, like, to kind of look into crystals, because it can help to shift the energy, not only in yourself, but also the house. Like yourself, Bria, I have the selenite on the windowsills. I have the black tourmaline in certain rooms where there's too much technology. And I found that since I've had crystals into my life, it's not really a religious thing. It's just more of a spiritual thing, that it allows you to be more clearer in yourself and what you're here to kind of do.
Yeah.
It's I almost feel like we should be taught this at school, and like when in the working environment, we should all have like little mini crystals.
I used to, when I worked for, you know, I've had day jobs, and I used to share my office with someone and like all sorts of stuff. I used to hide crystals. Like they didn't even know they were there, but I would just grid out the entire, either my personal office to keep out other people's energy, or if I shared it with other people, I'd put like fluorite all around their desk and rose quartz and all sorts of stuff, just to be like, that's your energy and this is my energy, and this is a really clear boundary, and like you can keep your stuff, I'm gonna keep my stuff, and like we're gonna be good.
I love that.
But no one ever knew.
It's amazing, and I found that a lot of people hide them in their bras and their pockets, and it does make a difference. Like I used to go to certain events and I used to feel so tired, and then when I started having crystals and wearing my hat at that time, it just shifted my energy, and I felt so protected, almost like the angels were kind of protecting me from any bad vibes.
Yeah, no, I love it. I have a whole altar that lives in my bedroom and I have all sorts of like Saraswatis on there, and Ganesh and Lakshmi, and just all sorts of crystals. I've been drawing elephants to me like crazy lately. So there's and like tons of gifted elephants as well. They're just coming my way. And so, yeah, I surround myself with all those little things just to me, it's, you know, obviously me and my light and my vessel is the predominant thing. And I feel like these are just like little extra like tools and
Yeah.
support things that I can kind of supplement all the other things I'm doing. So I take care of myself physically inside, I take care of myself physically outside, and these things just kind of help me as additional foundations, additional support.
Yeah, it's almost like it brings us back to ourselves. All the crystals, it's always about coming back to who we are and ourselves, and reminding us to be present in ourselves.
Yeah.
If anyone's interested about crystals, check out the podcast with Energy Muse Ladies, which is in the iTunes list. My dear, I wanted to talk to you about the importance of a daily practice. You hear a lot of different coaches saying, you should do this, you should do that. What's your kind of viewpoint about daily practices?
So my viewpoint is that we don't spend enough time knowing ourselves and really connecting with our souls, our lights, or whatever you want to call it. And so my daily practice looks different every single day, but the consistency is in that between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. I am with me. I am with my soul. I'm with my higher power, my angels, my whatever that looks like for you, right? And that's my time to really be connected, because throughout the rest of the day, everything's pulling at us: email, cell phone, notifications, calls, texts, like so much stuff is pulling our attention in so many different directions. And if I don't have that like solid, grounded connection with myself and with my divinity and all these things, I can get real easily spun off course.
Yeah.
So that time is my time. It's my time to do me. It is my time to fill my cup. It is my time to take care of myself and to feel really good about who I am and what I'm creating in the world, so that then anytime anything comes at me for the rest of the day, I'm approaching it and I'm responding to it from a really centered place. I'm not, spinning out into the what ifs. I'm not living in that place of fear. I'm not, losing my balance, losing my center. I'm able to respond to it from a place of wholeness, I guess.
It's almost giving yourself that permission to allow yourself to get ready for the day. So it's like, we're going to go into our mode and just clear what needs to be cleared and just be present for that day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I prefer morning routines just because I'm a morning person anyways. But to me, again, it's that like setting up my day for success and setting myself up to be centered and be grounded and be in my power throughout the day. Versus if I remember the days when I had a day job and I would get up and I would really quickly like jump into the shower and make breakfast and eat breakfast on the way to work. And I was rushing and rushing and rushing and rushing. And I would get in the office and everything would be chaotic. And I'd be rushing and rushing and rushing and rushing. And I'd get home and I'd be so exhausted. And it just was like, I felt like I was just spinning my wheels constantly. And now I'm much more present. I'm much more grounded. I'm much more purposeful. And I get to create on a whole different level because I give myself that time in the mornings. And so to anyone that doesn't yet have a practice, I would recommend you start with something, whether it's 5 minutes a day, whether it's 10 minutes a day. I did not start with a 3-hour morning routine, straight up. I started with a 5-minute meditation and it kind of grew into what it is now. But, if you're not giving yourself that time, who else is? And I hear from so many people, I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. Well, make time for it. Yeah. And 2, like if you're not prioritizing yourself, how is that playing out in your life? And what is that doing for you? Because you have another option.
Yeah. You're putting all that hard work in and to not look after yourself, it doesn't really make sense, does it?
And it's crazy too, how even just a 5-minute meditation can shift everything about the energy of your day, can shift how you show up, how you end up creating, how well you're doing in your job, how much you're enjoying. Like, even if you have a job you don't like, having that 5 minutes to yourself in the morning can shift your perspective and help you at least be grateful for something within that job, because the more you hate it, the longer it's going to persist. So why not start showing up from this place of fullness, and your world's going to change around you. It will absolutely change. There's no other choice. But not giving yourself permission to do that is, to me, I think it's just ridiculous. I don't even know how else to describe it. It's, if you can't give yourself 5 minutes a day, I have nothing to say. I don't even know what to do with that.
Yeah. Well, there's that saying, you can't serve from an empty vessel. And it's funny, as you were talking about your journey from the past, I was the same. I used to run with toast in my mouth, my heels in another hand, running to work, like 5 minutes late, and I used to just leg it down. And like some days I was out of breath. And I was always late because I was unhappy in that job, but I just kept doing it for the money at that time because I loved the commission. And I used to remember like hardly sleeping at night because I'd be always looking at messages, and I'd live off like 3 hours sleep, just unhappy. And when I started to meditate, when I went on my journey, oh my God, that whole me running around and not knowing where I was like a headless chicken just changed. I'm so present now than I've ever been in my life. And it really does allow you to ground yourself and be true to yourself. And you kind of start to learn about boundaries and like values as well without even realizing it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. Even just that 5-minute meditation, whether like no matter what it's related to, can start shifting so many other areas of your life.
Yeah. And everyone who's listening out there, just so you know, like some people might, have had messages in the past saying that, I can't meditate. And like, if I have meditated, it's been really heavy. Sometimes it takes time, like even with myself, I don't know with yourself, Brie, but when I first started meditating, it was so hard to like zone out. I remember looking out the window, like trying to like look at anything else but zone out. When I eventually started to zone out, I was very emotional because there was a lot raising up to the surface that needed to be healed. It wasn't one of those meditation situations where I started meditating and woohoo, I was like really like airy fairy and like, hey guys. It wasn't like that. It took probably a good 6 months for that darkness to almost clear and bring in the light. What was your kind of personal journey with meditation?
I started a lot with guided meditations because my mind was so spun up into so many different things that I couldn't calm it down enough. Like I would just sit and my mind would spin. And so I had to start with guided meditations because it slowed my brain down enough and gave it something to focus on. So that I could follow the words of whoever was guiding me to be like, okay, the light is coming in through my crown. Got it. All right. I'm feeling it move down, and like I had a place to focus my thoughts and my attention. And the more and more and more and more I did it, then I was able to transition into, now I can put on just some simple, solfeggio tones or chakra based music or whatever, and just go into a flow state for 15, 20 minutes. But that's also been, 8 years in the making, right? So the thing that I always say to people, because people always say, well, I can't meditate. Well, then you're not doing the right kind of meditation for you. Yeah. And there is no right kind of meditation, right? Like you just have to find what works for you, because sitting still with mudras, like in the cross-legged position, might not work for you. It might not. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But everyone can meditate. I believe that we were born meditating, right? Like this, it comes naturally to us, but you have to find the kind of meditation that works for you. And by immediately closing off to it and saying, I can't meditate. One, you're telling your brain, you're reaffirming to your brain that you can't meditate. And then your brain's going to be like, oh, right, we can't meditate. Gotcha. We don't do this. Yeah. Your brain does what you tell it to do. So if you're telling it that you can't meditate, obviously it's going to be like, oh yeah, we can't meditate. Start shifting your speaking, start shifting your understanding, your believing about what you're capable of. Try a bunch of different things out and see what works for you.
Absolutely, that's so true. And that was something I spoke with Davey G a few months back, and it was really interesting because he had an experience where somebody was saying this is the only way to do meditation. And even
Ugh.
my personal journey, I'd been meditating since I was a kid, but I had no clue. I was just naturally sat there. Like, I used to go to the temple as a kid and I used to just sit there but never understand anything. But I was in a meditative state, but I didn't realize I was doing that. And with David G as well, like when he kind of went off on his own journey and when I went on my own journey and just sat and trusted my own meditation, it just flowed. But for some people, they need to go to, you know, a meditation class or a yoga class to help them to feel, to go into that state. And that's absolutely fine. Like, and just like you said, it's so important to kind of find your own path. And, you know, if you have to go get those tools from a teacher, go for it. However, also find your own unique style, because nobody can meditate like you do.
Yeah. We've been, you know, our school systems teach us to be sheep, basically, right? So we walk around thinking other people know best. Everyone else needs to tell me how to do it because we can't think for ourselves. I don't know what I need, so someone else knows and they're going to tell me. And that's how so much of what's going on in our world today is built, right? Like people don't trust themselves. They don't take the time to figure out what works for them. They go, I see this so much in the entrepreneurial community. Well, so-and-so said I need to do webinars, so that's how I'm going to build my business. Well, the webinars don't work for everyone. Well, so-and-so said I really need like an Instagram strategy, so that's what I have to do for my business. It's like, no, you need to find your path. And when you can find your path and when you can follow your path, then everything else will come. But if you're constantly basing what works for you off of what works for other people, you're going to be searching and spinning and failing for a long time.
I feel like giving you a high five, a virtual high five.
Yeah.
It's so true. And I think we all kind of we all have to go on that journey of like realizing that we create our own destiny. We create what works for us, and we just have to trust in that process.
Yep. And it's not sexy. It is not sexy. People want the 6 steps. They want to be like, tell me how to do this thing and then I'm going to do it. It's not sexy to go within and find your path. But it is the only way that you will be able to build a lasting legacy. Yeah. The 6 steps will burn themselves out because they're probably not aligned for you. And then you're going to be searching for the next 6 steps and then the next 6 steps and then the next 6 steps when you could have taken the time in the first place to just find your path. And you wouldn't have to be spinning and searching and spending money and wasting time and all these things.
Absolutely. And sometimes things can change as well, even when you're on that path. Like, for example, with guys like the show itself, like Get Inspired with Girls has always been part of me. However, after my operation, something just woke up in me and said, right, that's it. It's got to be the Inner Light Project. And I could have just sat there and carried on with, you know, Get Inspired with Girls and kept that name. But if I did, I'm not being true to myself. I'm not being true to what my purpose is. So even if you're on that journey, it's okay to start a fresh start and just trust in that flow.
Yeah.
It's just I just feel like it's so important, because I feel like even within business, sometimes people are so scared of, you know, making a little change because they're so used to something and it works. That's kind of like an old version of you. It's now kind of stepping up into that new version of yourself.
Yes. I talk about this a lot in the book because when what was working for me in 2016 stopped working for me in 2017 because I created a different trajectory for myself. I changed my end point. And in the changing of the end point, I couldn't take the same path anymore because it didn't lead to the same destination. And so everything that was working on my path in 2016 stopped working in 2017. And I had to redo everything and become an entirely different woman, but 2, also get clear on like, okay, well, if this is now where I'm going, what's aligned with that pathway? Because if I continue to hold on to what has worked in the past, I'm not going to be creating the results that I want in the future. Absolutely.
And can you tell us more about the book, Permission to Leap?
Yeah. So the book came to me, which was interesting last year. I was in meditation and got a really clear message that I was writing a book and that I was writing it in June and I was leaving LA for 2 weeks to go write it. And it was a very interesting journey, allowing that path to unfold in front of me, figuring out, what am I writing about and what wants to come through me right now and what am I good at and what's, all these things. And so I wrote the book over a course of 2 weeks in June in Seattle, and launched it in November. It's all about taking that leap of faith, taking that idea that you have and turning it into reality. Because it's one thing to have an idea. It's another thing to create that idea and give birth to it. So, and there's a lot of, it's the space between those two places that no one's talking about. And everyone wants to gloss over that part. Everyone wants to talk about the rags to riches story. They want to talk about before and they want to talk about the after, and no one wants to talk about the middle. And I'm like, we are doing people a disservice by not talking about the middle of our journey, because people are being unprepared for what they're getting into. They don't know what to expect or what to face. They don't understand the inner process that has to happen, because the majority of a leap is the inner process. And so I wrote this whole book kind of like exposing everything from the day you commit to your leap of faith, all the way up until the day you land on the other side of that leap, and, create a feedback loop and a really consistent plan to continue moving forward from that point. So I talk about the highs, the lows, all the mess that goes into the creation process, and really support people in bringing their visions to life.
Wow. I love that. It's so true that you're right. People don't talk about the crappy bits and the things that you have to do. It's like, oh, this is what happened and this is where I am now. It's never about, okay, so we had to do this and we had to do that. And it is a journey, and it's so important to share that so others can see how kind of experiences you have to go to and what kind of experiences they may have to go to in order to get to the destination that they want to go to.
Well, and I think it normalizes those experiences for other people, because what happens is we sit around, especially solopreneurs, we sit around in our homes telling all these stories about how we're massively failing and how no one else is that, everyone else's Instagram feeds look perfect, which means that no one else is failing. We are the only ones failing. So clearly we're doing it wrong. And we spin all of these ridiculous stories about how we're unique and we're different, and no one else is having these experiences, when in fact everyone is having those experiences. Everyone is facing all of the same things. I always say to my clients, I'm like, you're not special. You're not special. Everyone goes through this. Everyone does, but no one talks about it. So we think we're alone. We don't reach out for help. We allow ourselves to go spin down the fail spiral, and then we give up on our dreams and our vision because we're not equipped to understand what actually goes into that building process.
Yeah, that is so true. I love that. And where can the listeners find your book, my dear?
So Permission to Leap is on Amazon. It's currently available on Kindle and in paperback, and soon, I unfortunately don't have a date, on audiobook as well.
Exciting.
Yeah.
I look forward to listening to it as well.
Thanks, me too.
Oh. And my dear, we are coming towards the end of the program. It's gone so quick. I've got a few questions left to ask you. My first one is, what's your 5 top tips for someone who wants to tap into their inner vision, but they don't know where to start?
Transfer. So a lot of us start where knowing what we don't want, which is it's an okay starting point, but you don't want to stay there. So if you know what you don't want, try spinning it into what you do want, because what you focus on grows. So if you're focusing on what you don't want, you'll only continue to get more of what you don't want, right? So transition from what you don't want into what you do want. I would say get a community around you, because again, this journey, this path is really tough alone. Build in people, join a mastermind, join something to help you through the dark days, because there will be dark days. Even, I'm 10 years into entrepreneurship and I still have dark days. I have 2 calls scheduled every Wednesday with my people to make sure that I'm staying on track, right? So get a community. I would say find a way to heal your fears. Don't just brush past them. Don't just ignore them. If you are not healing them, they will continue to pop up and they will be running your life. So find a practitioner, find some way to actually get to the root of what's causing them and heal them. I just became certified as an RTT hypnotherapist, and it is one of the most powerful tools I have ever experienced. So I use it, like I have a practitioner that I use, and then I also administer it now as well. And it's kind of the only thing I've found that actually gets to the root and removes it so that you can move on with your life. That's 3. Let's see. What are my other 2? Commit. Really commit. Like, pick a side. You can't waffle back and forth between saying yes to bringing this vision to life and saying no, because you're going to confuse the universe. So pick a side and commit. And finally, have fun. Like, we take all of this all too seriously, and really, truly, like, have fun with it. Enjoy the process. Find a way to be, in joy and pleasure, and have fun with it.
I love that. I do love those. And what are you most grateful for?
I think I'm most grateful for my home. I love where I live. I live in the center of downtown LA on Broadway. And when I walked into this place a year and a half ago, I said, when I was like, we're just going to a little open house. I brought my intern with me. We're just going to a little open house. We're just going to look, like, we're not buying anything. We're just going to, like, it popped up on Craigslist. I'm starting to open the energy around moving, blah, 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 blah. I walked in and I was like, oh, this is it. This is the one. This is it. And I moved in a year and a half ago, and I love my home. I really, really love my home. And I'm a Taurus, so I love having that safe, grounded, just like space to be me and to heal and to grow and to, I just love my home.
Oh, I love that. Oh. And my last question, my lovely, is what kind of shines your inner light to help others?
Yeah, like I talked about a little bit earlier, having the right people around me really is so incredibly helpful in shifting my perspective to keep my light lit. Because we can look into the physical world for validation and, measures of success and all of these things. And then if we're not getting those things, we can allow our light to dim. And my community around me reminds me of who I am and what my truth is and why I'm here. And they keep me going. They really help me to see the truth and keep that light lit within myself.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for sharing your story and just how it's so important for us to just trust in our vision and trust in our worth as well. Definitely going to have another chat with you on the show very soon.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
What a great interview with Bree Seeley. Gosh, I definitely learned a lot today, and I hope you guys took some nuggets away from it too. Unfortunately, that's the end of the show. Before I leave, I want to leave you with this quote. Your vision will become clear when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. That's a quote by Carl Jung. For more information about the show or Bree Seeley's details, visit www.gerdshundel.com. And remember, stay happy, stay healthy, stay lit.